Recording started. All right, mate. Here we are. This is our podcast.
They don't want to be locked into a house or an apartment or some space.
Got to follow the social distancing rule.
More social distancing keeps more people healthy.
It's like, oh, you guys good at talking shit. Why don't you just do a podcast? As soon as you try to do a podcast, we sound like a bunch of muppets.
Hey boys, big show today.
Hey, mate.
Big
Hey, I
show.
reckon the intro just played without sound. So
Nah.
That's probably a bit of a relief for people.
I could hear it.
Yeah, I heard it.
Oh, okay.
Where are you?
Thanks, mate.
You're up in
All
the
right.
hills. You're up in
Yep.
the mountains.
Yeah, I've
Georgie.
taken a vacay over in Teen. Spelled the word Tinges. Somehow spells teen in France. But this is me. For the people that are on the YouTube channel.
Fuck, check it out.
It looks
Absolute
mint.
shit hole. No.
I always thought it was
it's good.
pronounced Tigny.
Yeah, Tignis.
Yeah, that's right. Tignis, but apparently it's teen, like a tin, like an Australian saying tin.
Yeah, right. How's your week been, fellas?
Mate, my week's been good. Been training bloody hard. DNF'd my first session today. Just tapped out.
Did
I was
you?
tapped out. Yeah, I was
Is-
tapped
is-
out, mate.
Is that because you're counting calories and you
Will
have
be.
not put enough in?
It will
How
be.
negative are you this week?
I was negative after today's session, mentally.
Yeah.
I've been negative.
So you got no fuel in the tank, Jules.
I had to have a coffee for the show, actually, get myself lined up. But you've made a big commitment tonight, Jonesy. You've stayed up late. This is a late recording for you.
Yeah. And just on another side note, I've had an outbreak. I've got one of those pimples, that like are really buried in the skin, and you sort of got to make a call. Do I either just ignore it and let it go, or do I just get in there, have a dig, and hopefully I get one of those ones that really sort of fire off and hit the mirror, but could leave a scar,
You got to get
See,
real
I'm
deep because
for it. I think, like, for me, it would be worth getting, just coming in a big outbreak. I look forward to outbreaks just because it's something, the satisfaction of smacking them out is
Are
worse
you-
than,
are you-
like, who
You're one of
cares?
those guys, George, that watch pimple popping videos on YouTube. Be honest.
No, I don't. I can't get into other people's, but sometimes, like, if you get heaps of massage, this is gone.
Have you heard?
Like,
Have you heard about this rabbit hole, Bills? They're like pimple popping videos get massive numbers.
really?
Like there's
Yeah.
some that have got like 15 million views, and they're usually the ones that the real stringy pimples.
Oh, yeah, they keep
if we
coming.
wanted to get better coverage, we'd fuck this podcast off, and then we'd just go straight into popping pimples and putting it on YouTube.
Yeah.
So when the
And-
numbers get real low, we'll move into that field.
And when you get elderly people and they get that sort of back cyst pop that they had since like 1988, they get massive numbers as well.
Oh, I have seen the ones where it's like the neck cysts go, and it just keeps coming, and you go, and it's like a car crash. You can't turn away. You're just looking at it, going, oh.
Yeah. And then when the best is when you think it's all out, and they dig in
And then it
again, and
comes
there's
round
more.
two. The ones
This
that
is
are
a
real
great
bad, it's ones that
start.
open with a scalpel.
Hey,
Have you ever seen the scalpel open ones?
Yeah.
I'm struggling a bit with the start because I was late to the lineup because I was struggling to find. I've moved into George and Caitlin's apartment for this episode for better
We're in my
internet,
house. Oh.
and I got the key. So I've come in here and finally logged on. You're like, Jonesy's like, righto boys, let's go recording. And then you guys have come with such hot intensity about.
Well, all I'll
Pimple
say is this:
popping.
search Dr. Pimple Popper, and I think she's got her own YouTube channel, and her signature is this metal little hook with a sort of loop at the end of it, and she can dig in. Oh, we've lost George. You can dig in and get those deep blackheads. That's her signature, mate.
Sorry.
And she just goes
That was just
through
my coach calling me.
and churns and burns and pops all these blackheads. So,
Yeah, right.
great
Have
stuff.
you seen the mats you can get that simulate it? They're like these mats that are sort of full of pus underneath, and just a plastic mat with fake pus, and you're meant to pop it.
Let's
No,
move
it's good
on.
stuff.
Let's. You guys are the fucking pimple on my forehead right now.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I want to know. I'm going to stop, Jules. You're in my house. I'm pretty happy to know that my girlfriend just left this morning on a little holiday trip. Otherwise, I'll be asking some big questions.
Yeah, no, I actually haven't seen it the last few days since you left. You're
good news.
the star attraction in this apartment. It seems.
Is
I
Bewley
thought
like
that you'd be sniffing around
Cosmo
even more.
Kramer? Is Bewley like the Kramer character that just sort of waltzes in, steals your food?
Haven't left the building
Has
for
a-
6 years or whatever.
Yeah. Don't quite know what he gets up to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tries
Come
to have
and make a
home with your missus
bologna.
and-
Come and make a bologna sandwich and read the newspaper.
Hey, one thing I've been wanting to suggest for a while is, you know how on really good podcasts, you know it's a good podcast when at the start they rattle off their sponsors and they go, okay, before we start the show, I want to say a big shout out to Pimple Popping Cream or whatever it is.
What's that called?
We obviously don't have any sponsors because we're not at that level yet. But I thought, why not? You should each week just bring a someone that you want to give a shout out to.
A brand that we like, you reckon?
Yeah, like a genuine, just to get practice at doing a genuine sort of shout out to a sponsor.
Yeah, right. I'll give Dos Kiwis Brewing a shout out. I've been wearing their hat. It's the only hat I brought with me up to Andorra, so I wear it every single day.
Yeah.
This Dos Kiwis Brewing. It's a local brewery in Girona, just out of Girona. They brew some bloody good craft beers. He's a good man, Mike. He's a Kiwi boy from Tauranga. Now he's living here and just brewing top ales. So I'll give them a shout out. If you're ever in the Girona region, go to Dos Kiwis Brewing.
They got a website there, Sam?
Yeah, Dos Kiwis Brewing, I suppose.
I think we've just put people off. We've just put people off buying. Like, I think this is reverse. People going, oh, I'm never going near those guys anymore. I think we're
sold out.
harming these companies. We're harming these
sold
companies
out.
in a big way. I think we need to just steer clear and let's not see any more companies.
Another thing we should do at the start of the episode is when we have a guest coming on, we should actually talk about them and introduce them, because today,
Darren Impey.
No, not Impey.
Yeah. Not Darren.
I like that you can't get a guy on your team to join the podcast, but getting someone from another team, arguably a bigger and more successful team, no dramas. No dramas. You want to come on? You know the time, you know the place, I'll be there.
Well, in fairness to Daz, it's not his fault. It's definitely my fault. I haven't chased him up as much as I maybe should have. But anyway, this week, we're going to be talking later in the episode about Chris Froome's transfer next year. He's obviously leaving Team Ineos after 10 or 11 years in that team, and he's heading across the Israel Cycling Academy. So we've got Luke Rowe, who's going to join us towards the end of this episode to talk about that and probably go way off piss like we normally do and talk about something completely different. But he will be here later on in the episode.
Have you got some hard-hitting questions for Rowe Buells about Froome and, you're going to try and stoke the fire, or are you just going to be like sit on the fence and just play nice?
Well, one of the promises to Rowe was we'd keep it above board. And to be honest, I'm always above board with Froome. I'm a big fan of his. So the questions will be pretty generic, journalistic questions. If you don't like what we say, you can go to Cycling News and read what they say. But
is Froome the legend of Bellend, or
no? We got Tiger on this week. Hey, speaking of Tiger, legend of Bellend, when I put it up on the social media that we were going to be doing him this week for Legend of Bellend, some dude commented, and it was a great comment. And he said, Tiger Woods, he's a legend who thought with his bellend.
That's a good call.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
So my question list for Rowe, I'm actually just going to see if I, about 4 weeks ago, I did put a few questions down for Darren Impey, and so I'm just going to see if I can shoehorn those in, and maybe talk to Luke Rowe about growing up in South Africa and things like that. See if we can apply that.
Ask him what it's like to be the African to wear the yellow jersey at the Tour de France.
Yeah. Why not? At least it's better than nothing.
That's it.
Well, we've got a few news stories to cover. We've got, I think we were going to, one of the big topics we've got today, I actually think we should wait until Rowe's in, and because I think he'd be a real insight into some things that have happened in New Zealand sports lately, and it sort of begs the wider question of a bit of aggression in sport. And so I think that would be great to save that for when Luke's here. But what I've been going deep in lately, actually, I haven't talked to you boys about talking about this, but I just just thinking about it. I was lying on my bed before. I've gone deep into the Formula One Drive to Survive. Have you guys seen any of that? The first series?
Yeah, I saw the first series. Really good.
So a couple of things on that have just stuck with me, and I watched about 6 episodes yesterday, and ended up having F1 dreams all night. And one line that just keeps sticking with me, and that is that your teammate. So each people don't know anything about F1. So there's 10 teams, and each team has 2 drivers in the same cars, and it's huge competition to get a seat in a car for each year. And the big thing that I just can't get past is that your teammate, so the other bloke in the same car as you, is your biggest enemy, because you're the only 2 guys on a level playing field, and then you see who's the best driver. And I've been thinking about that a lot, and I'm actually here at Team Camp, and I was wondering if do you guys feel, or Sam in particular, I guess, do you feel there's any element of that in cycling?
Well,
That's a good question, George.
Yeah, that's a great question. Jeez. I told you I was wrong-footed at the start of this episode. You forget. Look, I don't know. I think so. Yeah. Yeah, no.
Because you think about it, say you're going for a Tour de France spot, right? And
yeah.
let's take Bjorn for an example, and we take his kind of rider. Big guy, strong guy, big. So in Mitchelton alone, you got guys like Jul Jensen, Heppy, Durbo, Bauer, whatever. There's heaps of guys. And in one particular year, I mean, this year maybe not, but in particular years, you're all vying for a. So that's you actually boys off the bike, but man, you in an element of you, until you've made the final 9, you're kind of at odds with each other, aren't you?
Well, I'll give you another example. Actually, probably a better example of what I've experienced over the years is in the track program in team pursuiting. So in team pursuiting, you go to the Olympic Games and you normally take 5 team pursuit riders, and obviously only 4 line up on the day, and it's the biggest event. Everyone wants to be racing the Olympic Games, especially if you're in the chance of a medal. And like in our situation in New Zealand and Beijing and London, like these guys were my best mates. Like we still catch up every year. Every year I go back to New Zealand, we do an annual catch up, different part of New Zealand, and we just have a couple of days on the booze and go mountain biking and just catch up with each other. So we're really close mates, but we were literally in competition for those spots, because you knew that if you didn't perform better than the other guys in training, you weren't going to make the team. And as much as we wanted the teams to succeed, if you weren't in the team, if you were in the middle of the track there watching the guys race, you're going to get a medal. So that was a real interesting scenario of like guys that you really cared about and you wanted them to be on the start line with you, but we knew that we couldn't all be there. So the competition was actually real in those situations.
I reckon the worst thing about F1 is, and you saw it in that series, is when the teammate takes out his teammate. Like there was a case where the Red Bull guys,
when the Verstappen and Ricciardo, they were going at it. But I think the one you might be talking about was when the 2 was it the Force India boys who just hated each other in a big way, and they just keep putting each other into the wall, one after the other.
Yeah. And
how
many
millions of dollars is that every time?
Exactly. Those sort of stuff ups. I mean, a lot of those crashes, I mean, they're not going to buff out. You're talking like millions and millions of dollars. And then they zoom in on like, you think of like how much logistics. You got a staff of like 100 going to these races, and it's all wiped out in a split second with someone getting white line fever and just going, nah, fuck it, I'm just taking him out. I'm just taking him out.
What's the cycling equivalent of that? The cycling equivalent of that is you're going to the Tour de France and the Dauphiné is the last selection race. So, there's 3 guys for one spot or something. And the cycling equivalent of doing that, short of crashing them, is either there's 2 ways to do the cycling equivalent of that. One is you in the race, you wait, let the other 2 guys, say with domestic, or say my role climbers, and you want to be the last climbing support or the whatever, and you just snake it. You wait, and when it's your turn to pull, you surge and try and drop the other guys. And although they've been riding stronger, you've looked better. Or you get back in the bus, and the first thing you do, walk up to the director and go, "Fuck, what was old mate doing? He was having a shock. He was really creeping. I really had to carry the ball," and really just ragging on them to the sports director. The other 2, I guess, classic sabotage ways of
Well, here's
Stephen
a
Kreuzwick just walked past. That's our first
Yeah,
guest, Stephen Kreuzwick.
Yeah.
No, he's gone. He did just
Well,
walk past.
Oh, it was good to have him on the show.
Here's an interesting story for you, George. Is in 2012, I was rooming next to Bradley Wiggins by random at the team hotel. The stage when Froome went off the front. Remember when
Punch to
Froome?
Belfies.
Yes.
Punch to Belfies, and he had to tell him to slow down, and he was screaming on the mic.
Yeah. And I was rooming next to Wiggo that day. And I remember thinking, geez, like, what are the odds? This is going to be awesome. And he was steaming after the day. And I remember he brought Brailsford in, and there was like a screaming match going on inside the room. And I could hear all this. And he was rattling off, going, you know, Mick Rogers did his job. He was fucking great. Richie Port, great. What the fuck, mate? And pretty much threatening to leave the race, like to hand in and go, I'm not going to fucking start if I have to put up with this shit. And they were like, you know, calm down, Brad. It's going to be okay or whatever. And I remember just like, you know, your rival team, you're like, geez, you can really, if I had my camera recording and getting the audio, this is gold. But then they were forced to go out the next day and everyone was going, we're hearing rumors that there's friction within the team. Like, oh, no. It's all fine.
That's what I like about F1 though. They didn't pretend. They were just like, this guy. And then the two interviews where they just rag on each other. They're sitting beside each other like in the press conference, and they're just taking rounds out of each other. And you know, they just take it on the chin and they don't give a shit. And then they have to then travel to the next race together. They have to do everything together. But it just must be this most intense for 20 rounds. If you just hate this guy beside you, it must be the most intense atmosphere.
But I think
what's in cycling, like it's a little bit different because, like that last point you said, George, about sabotaging. But at the end of the day, like teams, like you go in the Tour de France, you have your leader, you know, for example, or if you're in your team or Rowe's team, you've got three. But the other guys that are selected to go to that Tour de France are based on what they do in their job and support and help and loyalty, what they offer on the bike, what they offer in the bus, you know, with leadership and road captaincy and all that stuff. So it's not necessarily like you get to the Dauphiné and there's one spot and there's three guys going for it. That spot's not selected on who finishes first that day, who crosses the line first out of those three. It's selected on what that person can bring Tour de France and whatever their designated role is. And that's different to Formula One because they don't give a shit. They just want a guy. I mean, you're talking about multi-millions and millions of dollars. Yeah. All they want is whoever can drive that car the fucking fastest and win the races. They don't give a shit.
Can you imagine if we went to the Tour with 8 guys and they just said, all right, we're just going to race for a week, and all 8 GC guys, and we're just going to go for it for a week, and then we'll see who's the strongest. Which is what who was the team that Greg LeMond won his? Greg LeMond won his first Tour on them
with Bernard Hinault.
Yeah, and they basically came with the tactic. Just we're going to bring like 4 leaders, 5 leaders. There's going to be no hierarchy. Everybody just try win. And then we'll see in the last week, and then we'll work for someone, you know. And
did
then,
ESPN do a doco on that?
Hunting I think it's called Taming the Badger or something.
Yeah,
Hunting the Badger, Taming the Badger.
Yeah.
Feeding
that's
the Badger.
Hino, isn't he, the Badger?
Yeah. Feeding the Badger.
But I getting back to Formula One, I reckon that the team managers, they play off that rivalry. They stoke it because it makes them hungrier. And it gives them sort of that motivation to go, oh, shit, I'm not comfortable. Because I reckon in F1, if you start getting comfortable and feeling like your place is secure, you're probably not going to drive as good.
Yeah. And you need a bit of aggression. But there's some egos there too, you know. I mean, you've got you just the egos involved in that sport. They just love it. The Red Bull owner.
Hey, I reckon we could get Bottas on this show because he goes out with Tiffany Cromwell, who's you know, everyone knows Tiffany through the Australian cycling scene. She used to ride at Green Edge, so she's great, babe. So maybe we could try and get him on the show in 2024 or something.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that. I promised too much.
Yeah.
Should we?
We'll just settle for a guy who knows someone that lived next door to him in Monaco or something. I don't know.
Do you think we should maybe get stuck into Tiger Woods for a little bit and then call Rowe up and talk to him about life?
Well,
Or
I had one other topic I wanted to talk to you before we do, and that is what is your rating on customer service in general in this COVID period? Because I've had some really good experiences. Like I went for a drive-through coffee last week, and I went to pay for it, and the lady's like, "Nah, it's already been covered. The car in front of you shouted your coffee," and then just drove off. And I'm like, "Oh shit, how good's that?" But then yesterday I had my worst ever experience.
Really?
Ever. Right, his mic dropped me.
see you, mate. Yeah.
Really? Adios.
All right. Good.
Oh, no.
No.
I was closing the door.
Really?
We're getting stuck into some vacuuming in there.
Yeah.
Yep. Croyd's,
no,
actually,
so-
Stephen's on the vacuum right now.
So I went down to Subway for lunch, right? As soon as I walked in there, the restaurant had that real sort of, they sort of let this Subway go a bit because you can't eat in the restaurants here in Melbourne. We're about to embark on a second wave, so no one can eat indoors. You've literally got to go order and get out. So there was all like ratty signs on the tables, don't sit here and all that. So as soon as you walk in, you're like, okay, I can just sense that whoever works here is just over it. And then when I got served, the guy looking at me like, mate, what do you want in this sub? So he's filled out. There's no passion, So I get
Just
me
red
some.
onion smell. That's all I drink.
Mate. Yeah. What sort of? You want that thing toasted? Yeah, mate. He gets to the end, and then he goes, "You want a meal?" I said, "Yeah, I will." And I thought, no, I'm going large. I'm getting a large cup. So he just hands me the cup. I go to fill it. I fill the ice in, no dramas. And I'm thinking to myself, Coke Zero, and I'm thinking, nah, bugger it. It's a Sprite day. I'm going full sugar. And I slam it in, and no shit, this thing spews out the Sprite, but about 50 ants with it.
What?
So now 50
Oh,
ants into my cup. So I look at it, and I'm like, that is fucking disgusting. So I take it back to the guy behind the jump. I said, mate, what the hell's this? And he looks at it and goes, oh, yeah, you might want to grab a bottle instead, eh? So I go to the fridge, grab a bottle of Sprite, and I walk out all sort of like, the fuck just happened? I'm sitting in the car because I can't eat in the restaurant. I'm there with another mate of mine, B-roll, and we're eating our footlongs, talking shit.
B-roll
B-roll. It's a long story. I went to film school with him.
from Sale.
No, he's from Packy. His specialty's filming cutaway vision that they call B-roll. And his name's Ben, so it's got a good ring. Anyway, me and B-roll eating our subs in the car. We're parked out the front of the restaurant, and we're just almost like a stakeout. I'm watching this guy thinking, how's he going to react? Because an average guy, if I got handed a cup with 50 ants in it, I would freak out. Be like, oh, my God, I'm so sorry. I'll give you a voucher. Go grab another drink, and I'll shut that sort of drink dispenser down and get this shit sorted. Like Biohazard. No, he's just let me walk out the front door. I'm watching him. They're not even busy. He's just standing behind the counter as if like nothing's happened. Served about 4 or 5 people, and that was it. They didn't shut the machine out. So anyway, the first time ever I've actually sent it off to the third umpire. I'm like, no, I have to complain about this. I'm just going to submit something to Subway and say, look, you need to
ring Jared.
pull your heads in. No, this is no shit. I sent off a note to Subway head office or whatever. They've got like a whole process. Tick the box. What happened? What was your experience? Blah blah. So I just said to him,
How many ants?
I told him word for word, this is what happened. With the ants. And I get a response from their Subway team because also their internet was down, so I couldn't scan for like credits for like a loyalty customer. I think if you get like 10 subs, you get 1 free. So I said, your internet was down, got all the ants, blah, blah. They replied and they go, oh, I'm so sorry to hear about your experience. Send us your proof of purchase and we'll give you a credit, like we'll restore your loyalty points. Yours truly, whatever. And I replied, that isn't the issue. I don't care about bloody 20 loyalty points. I care about the 50 fucking ants in my drink and the fact that the guy didn't clean it. Anyway, then it went to another guy and they said, oh, yeah. I said, I don't care about that. I care about the ants. And he goes, sorry, I'm just in charge of the loyalty points. Someone else will be in touch with you. I get another email and it was literally from Jared can't remember his last name, manager of Subway, and I'm like, that's just too funny. And he said, "Mate, I'm horrified. Thanks for letting me know. I'm literally driving around to the store now to give the people working there a bit of a serve. Give me your address and I'll send you some free subs." And I was like,
Sweet.
after that experience, I think I'm going to give Subway a bit of a wide berth for a month or so. But anyway,
That was a good
that's a ro-
segue from. There's a good segue from let's promote some companies. We gave Dos Kiwis a shout out and then we fucking dragged Subway through the
through the rinser. It's a shame because
Well, it's been hard for
I've
them.
been eating Subways for years, mate. I'm a
I
big
love it.
supporter. But
Do you think they suffered from the Jared turning out to be a pedo debacle?
I'm
guys,
sure.
You know about that?
Yeah. I'm sure.
Speaking about Jared and Ants, did you watch Afterlife 2? And
Yeah.
that comedian, he says that joke. Hey,
What's
what's worse than ants in your pants? Michael Jackson.
Yeah, and then he gets like crickets.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
good
Tiger
show.
Woods.
Yeah, Tiger.
All right.
So we all know the story. Obviously, greatest golfer, arguably of all time. We pretty unanimous on that, or we?
Him with Jack Nicklaus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
him or the bear.
Okay. Starts losing. Starts playing shithouse, and just basically starts in this massive downward spiral where eventually it turns out he was essentially. Could you go as far to say he was a necrophiliac or
Nympho.
is that? Yeah, nymphomaniac. Sorry, necrophilia
Yeah,
is like when you.
What's a necrophilia?
So let's not
Yeah.
go that he wasn't. That
He
extreme.
didn't do that. I hope.
What is that?
That's nymphomaniac. This is what he said.
Yeah,
He did claim me as a.
He's a
But
sex
he
addict.
was eventually caught drunk driving, pulled over. He was and I'm going to read you a list of what he was caught with. I mean, he was obviously well over the drink driving limit. He had THC in the system. He had the painkillers Vicodin and Dialidid. And he had Xanax and Ambien, which is a sleeping tablet. So that would make you pretty muddled. And that was basically as low as it got, and then we found out that he'd basically just been spraying it around all over town and cheating on his wife, and and then proceeded to make what I would say.
He got done
Oh,
here
sorry.
in Melbourne. This is when it all came out. When
That
he
was the
playing in a
girlfriend,
tournament down here, yeah. And
He came with the girlfriend.
so there's a really interesting mini sort of documentary that I think the BBC did, and it was ages ago. And I remember I used to show it to all the Greenwich guys on the bus and whatever. And they basically went through and interviewed a lot of his old flings, because once one girl came out, there was like 50 in a really quick succession. But some of the stories were just like, they go through his whole life and his childhood. Like, did you even hear the story, Bills, about when he, like, how he got the name Tiger? Like, his dad was in the army.
What's his name? Aldred or something, eh?
Yeah, his
Alwood.
dad was in the army and at Vietnam or whatever, and he's in the jungle, and this snake crawled past, a poisonous one was going to attack him, and this local guy grabbed it and saved his life, and the guy's name was Tiger, and he said, "No, you're destined to have a kid one day, and he's going to be born, he's going to be great." And so that was his whole point in life. Like, he wanted to have a son and make him great. So he was the one that dragged him to the golf course, because he got free golf at the military place where he grew up, and that's all he did. And so Tiger had this really fucked up childhood where all he was doing was playing golf. And this guy reckons one day he just drove past Tiger when he was on his way to work. He was putting on a putting green, and he said he come back from work 8 hours later, he's on the same green practicing his putts. Like, that's not normal.
No.
And so then I think his dad was a playboy and used to play up a bit, and he saw that and sort of normalized it, and therefore his moral compass was a little bit off for a long time there. And then Yeah, I mean, it obviously all come unstuck, but some of the revelations in that thing, like, geez, he was just brazen before it all come out.
Well, I was reading he had 19 mistresses, which is
At one time, or
that's a
just
good
chronologically?
at one time, I think. So that's a great tally. And so what happened was, so it sort of was going to come out in this. So the girlfriend that he was in Melbourne with, Rachel something, she was going to tell all basically, and then they paid off $1 million, or someone paid her off $1 million to shut her mouth, which she did. Then the sort of like the rumors sort of coming out a little bit. So then his missus found the messages on Tiger's phone. First mistake, Tiger, and that's when she kicked off with the golf clubs. Remember, she smashed his Cadillac in, and then he crashed into the fire hydrant outside his driveway and all that stuff. And that's when the ball started rolling heavily. But then what happened was this Rachel girl, she got pissed off. She basically got jealous because she was with Tiger for like more than 2 years, 2.5 years or something, and she thought she was the only one. So she thought she was sort of sucked into Tiger's web a little bit, thinking, "Oh, I'm the special one." And turns out he had 18 others on the go, including like porn stars and stuff. So she got pissed off and jealous. So that's when she went out to the media and said like, "Oh, I got to get tested for bloody sexual transmitted diseases because he's been sleeping with porn stars and rah, rah." And that's what blew the whole thing up. And then that's, like Jonesy says, that's when they started coming out of the woodwork going, "Yeah, well, I was working at Denny's or whatever, and he chucked a leg over me in the back alley or whatever, you know?"
Yeah, no, she was the IHOP pancake worker. She was working. So Tiger, this is the shocker. He goes to IHOP for pancakes, and he looks at this waitress over the menu, like full creep style, and then he goes home and rings the restaurant and asks for this waitress, and they're like, phone call, it's Tiger. She's like, "What?" And so she starts talking to him. Tiger's like, "Yeah, I've been noticing you. I think we should like hook up." And she's like, "Oh, okay, whatever." And then they've hooked up, and he used to love taking it because he lived 5 minutes away. He used to take her down to his den, and his wife would be out getting a haircut, and he'd time it within a couple of minutes where they'd do the deed and he'd drop her off. And it was just living on the edge. Like he thrived on this whole, I'm almost caught, but I'm not. And eventually this restaurant workers, she's told her mum about this whole affair. I'm seeing Tiger Woods, and her mum's like, "Oh, it doesn't really sit well with me," sort of thing. But I'm sort of thinking at the same time as well, they didn't go public with it. So, but she didn't get any payment or anything. She reckons the only thing he gave her in the whole time they were together was, talking about Subway, it was a 6-inch Subway sandwich.
Yeah, and speaking of the den, we've lost George again. We've
lost George. And I reckon his data's chewed up because he's on mobile phone.
Yeah, he probably didn't charge his phone either.
Anyway, soldier on.
Anyway, speaking of that den, he had the neighbour's daughter down there a few times as well, I think.
Did he?
Yeah, mate. He was kicking goals, eh? Well, he was hitting
I don't know.
He was hitting the crossbar.
I mean, the bloke's married, Sam. That's
Well, that's my question. That's my sort of like. I mean, I'm not going to defend his actions, but like, outside of cheating on his wife, like profusely for a number of years with a number of women, he didn't do anything, did he?
No. I think in general he was trying to sell this whole pure family man image, that was crafted. Here's George again.
Hey, buddy.
What do we go, legend or valiant?
No, well, we're just saying that, like, I think
we're still talking about his valiant.
The thing that people obviously took objection to is obviously he's cheating on his missus, but he was projected as this sort of family guy, and they had this sort of squeaky clean image. And IMG, his management company, did they did a number of cover-ups for him over the period of time, and so it all came out. They went to his management with this IHOP waitress's whole affair, and they didn't pull the trigger on it because they did a deal where they said, okay, we won't announce this or publish it in our magazines on the condition that Tiger goes on the cover of Men's Health, and we'll just call it evens. And they said, okay. So he went on the cover of Men's Health, and they sold 5 times more copies than they ever did, and they kept it quiet. So, yeah.
It's interesting. A friend said to me this morning, he made a good point. I was talking about Tiger Woods, and he said, if Tiger Woods if he was a rock star, you know, it would only make it better. Like he'd only be like more of a legend for this, you know, like just spraying it around, getting on the like, you know, drugs, all the shit. For the fact that he was just like, I mean, arguably pretty similar, you know, slightly different but similar sort of professions. Yet he gets absolutely crucified as a sportsman, but would be absolutely celebrated as a musician or an actor or something, you know.
Yeah, and but when you look at his how he got crucified, he was bloody hung up on the cross, but it was only for a period, because at the end of the day, what he did wrong was a moral thing, complete moral thing. Like he wasn't bloody Harvey Weinstein or any of the fucking predators. Like he's not. He was just a guy that was super famous. He could basically, you know, it wasn't hard for him to pick up a girl. And if he was single, you'd go like, oh yeah, you know, Tiger, he's a bit of a menace, but like he's not doing anything wrong. And the only thing he's done wrong is cheat on his wife, effectively. So that's why the crucifixion was so short-lived. Not as short-lived as Jesus's, but it was short-lived. And
don't bring up that Jesus again. Jesus.
How did that go for us last week? How many listens did we lose after my monologue?
Oh, mate.
God.
I think, yeah. There's a few people that gave it that whole what?
Yeah, what?
I think the whole Sasami knife of gods really was the killer for a few people. They said he can't do that.
Yeah, when we asked people to share, you know, to promote our show to get some more listeners. My mum, being the bloody legend she is, she's supporting her son through thick and thin. She shared last week's podcast on Facebook, and she just wrote some interesting topics here.
My son's friends are dickheads.
Yeah. I always told my son not to hang out with that fucking George Bennett.
Yeah.
Quickly on the Tiger Woods is the comeback. People said it was, you know, one of the greatest comebacks in sporting history, but it wasn't like, for me, a greatest comeback would be, say, if Froome comebacks after the crash and wins the tour or something like that.
No, but his back was totally rooted as well. It wasn't just indiscretions. Like he literally had spinal fusion surgery or something, didn't he, Buells?
Yeah, he was man down. And that's why he was on those. Well, that's what he argues. He was on the Xanax and all those painkillers and things. And I mean, his back was rooted. I've got a friend who's got a similar issue, and she struggled for years and years.
Shagger's back.
Yeah. But he, you see that, you know, like one of his last tournaments before it all happened, he curled up on the middle of the fairway, you know, with that back problem, and he came back from arguably one of the biggest scandals in sport, and
he had Shagger's back and carpet burn on his knees,
and serious amounts of antibiotics to get rid of the clap. Just really dragging him down.
He was grinding up Viagra in his Gatorade.
But honestly, talking about that comeback, George, like for me, in my lifetime of what I've seen some bloody unreal sporting moments. But when he won the Masters a couple of years ago, like that was unbelievable, eh? Like he hadn't won a tournament. He won a tournament a couple of years prior, a smaller tournament, but he was bottom of the barrel in Tiger's terms in the professional ranks. And he came back and he won like the most prestigious golf tournament in the world. He put the green jacket on again for the whatever 5th, 6th, 7th, 100th time, and like that for me that was emotional. I nearly cried. Like the amount of people walking down the galley with him. I just didn't see it as a big disadvantage. I mean, I just don't see that, like, you know,
this bike crash. But now, like at the time, like I wasn't really understanding the emotion around it, because I was thinking all this guy's coming back from is spraying around too much, and I was thinking this is, I mean, how it's not that bad of a, it's not that much of a sort
as
of,
we said last
setback.
week, mate. We do a lot of good research on this show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are.
Hey, what do you reckon we
We are switched on.
ring Luke in and talk to him?
No,
about,
we're not. It's not up to us. He's joining us at 4 o'clock, so we've still got a bit of time.
Hey,
So we can
one other
bank through
Jeez.
a couple other topics.
One other thing that Tiger Woods did really well was those EA Sports games when he was at
It's
his
in the
peak.
game.
Yeah, Tiger Woods golf on the PlayStation. Doesn't get any better in the mid 2000s. Really good.
Should we vote then?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Anything else from the witness stand? Anyone else want to bring up anything?
Nah, I think we've pretty much covered it.
All right.
What are you voting, George?
Legend. Have to. Hard to call Tiger Woods a valiant on my part. I mean, I know he's broken some moral codes, but who am I to judge?
Yeah, I'll go legend.
Name George Bennett is not like Tiger Woods. It was just a play on words. Or the quiff, or whatever you call them.
Yeah, I'd go legend, Bills.
Yeah, look,
Can't
said,
knock what he's achieved overall. He's fucked up, but as I said, he's done his time. He's learned from his mistakes. I'm pretty sure he lives a really clean lifestyle off the golf course now. You could almost guarantee it.
Yeah, I hope he
that's
doesn't.
actually
I
another thing.
hope he hasn't done a big 180 and it's just a real fucking dribble. I hope he's not just like, all right, rein it in on the soda water, doing I hope he's still. No, I'm not saying I hope he still gets amongst, but I'm just hoping he's not. He hasn't been so scarred by it that he's done the full 180.
Well, it's a good point because, what would they do if you were diagnosed with sex addiction? I've seen movies where, comedies, where they say you pretty much have to stop eating. No, what was that off that movie where he said? I think it was Superbad, where he was addicted to drawing dicks, and he was told he's not allowed to eat anything that's penis shaped.
Yeah.
He goes, do you know what? All the good foods. It almost have to be
Popsicles.
something. It almost have to be something similar. If they had to say to Tiger, look, we need to really get you back on track, and we've got to first of all knock this sex addiction on the head. You pretty much have to go cold turkey in terms of anything that would trigger that.
You go join a nunnery, don't you?
Well, he's not a nun, but he's not a woman. But he went to sex rehab, eh? So it'd be interesting. We should have actually Googled that. What happens in a sex rehab facility? How do they treat these people?
One of you guys said Google.
Do you reckon?
I don't.
When you go to a drug rehab for heroin or something, they give you what do they give you?
I'll Google it live.
Codeine.
No, they give you methadone, like a methadone clinic. So do you reckon they wean them off sex somehow?
What will they just let them? They just give them doles. They swap in some doles or something for a while, and
maybe just hand jobs or something.
Seriously, if you type in what happens in sex rehab, number 2, Tiger Woods sex rehab, how clinics like Pine Grove work. That's number 2.
Okay, how does Pine Grove work?
Oh well, I'll find out. You guys talk. All right.
I'll vote quickly.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I'm going to vote legend as well, purely because, he crossed the moral code massively. His moral compass was spinning in all directions and pointing predominantly south. But at the end of the day, he didn't break any laws. He let some people down, a few million probably. But that comeback when he won the Masters a couple of years ago, man, it made my heart flutter. So I'll go legend purely from a sporting point of view.
All right. Well, I'm finding out now. There's a 12-step program when you get into this clinic. All the clinics vary, but and rehab lengths vary from 2-week outpatient seminars to up to 6 weeks, like the one where Woods was staying. And basically, the first thing that they do is get to the core of what you've got some underlying issues. So for Tiger, they're probably going, mate, what happened? Tell me about that day you were putting on that green for 8 hours as a kid. That shit's not normal. And he's opened up about the scars of all that sort of stuff. And it would go back to his childhood. And then the second stage, they go through confronting patients' distorted view of reality. Did the addict really believe that paying for essential massage was not the same thing as hiring a prostitute? Okay, well, just go Google it yourselves.
Yeah.
It's
I don't know if I
pretty
want that on my
detailed.
search history. I just don't know if I need that on my browser history.
Nah.
Well, I better explain it to Sarah when she gets up in the
You
morning.
better
If
get
she
it in
gets on the
private mode.
computer.
Yeah, do you want me to send
Yeah.
her a text? Just to
No, I might have
pre-warn
to
her?
do the old once a month clear history. There we go.
Log back into all your shit again. It's worth it, eh?
Hey, on another note, talking about old legend and balance, see our mate Kanye West and Elon Musk had their Twitter accounts hacked.
Yeah, everyone.
Really?
No, mine as well. Well, so like, yeah, they got their Kanye, Barack Obama, Elon Musk, Bill Gates. They were all hacked, and these tweets were sent out from their accounts promoting Bitcoin, like to buy Bitcoin. I've made millions of dollars through Bitcoin, rah rah. And they were only verified accounts. So what Twitter's done is they've suspended all verified Twitter accounts, so you can't tweet. And George, you'll have a verified account. Jonesy, you do as well, I think, and as do
No,
I.
I don't have a verified account.
So George
I
and I
tried
got
to get one verified, but they knocked me back.
because you bought all
So
those
we can't
followers.
tweet at the moment.
It's because Jonesy
Hey,
tried to.
shh.
Hold on,
Keep-
what have you done?
Keep doing.
No, so yeah, we can't tweet at the moment because we've got a verified account. I was going to try and put one out earlier just to test my importance of verification, but
All right. Do you
Some
want to hear
hacker-
Do you want to hear the real story about buying followers, George?
Yeah, I'd
It
love
was-
to hear this.
It was 2014, and I got an email from someone saying, "Do you want an extra 50,000 Twitter followers or something?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah."
Like a scam email, or was it an actual email?
No, it was an actual
Daniel.
email, and it was personalised, and there was a line in it early about cycling and the videos or whatever. So I thought, oh, well, this sounds
Oh,
legit.
Okay, it's
This
not a
dude
mass
works for
scam.
this. No, this dude works for this company. You know, he didn't say, oh, and also you've won the lottery in Nigeria. Just need your
I'm
bank
an
account
Prince.
details.
Yeah.
nice.
Okay.
So
Congrats.
anyway, I emailed him and said, well, what's the process? And he said, all right, well, normally it costs, I think it was $1,500 for 50,000 followers. Do it for $200 or whatever. And I'm like, how bad do I want these 50,000 fake accounts? I'm like, give it a crack. We'll see what happens. literally the next day, I thought it'll be a gradual thing. Like they'll drip feed you like, a couple of hundred and it'll just sort of slowly grow.
Look a bit
Next
more
day,
organic.
he smacked me with 25,000 followers. Like it went from 10,000 to 35,000. And then I'm like, oh no, like this is when Twitter was big, 2014, people are going to know. And I remember Brian Nargar walks in the next day and he goes, dude, you're causing waves on social media. And I had to play dumb. I'm like, what? He goes, dude, have you seen how many followers you got on Twitter now? And I'm like, nah, like just playing dumb. And then it blew out again. There was a next wave of followers and it got to like 60,000. So then I'm suddenly like this. I got more followers than half the guys in the team. And I'm trying to play dumb going, mate, it must be the videos or whatever. And long story short, I think most people caught on to it. And then as the years went on, all the fake accounts started getting busted or whatever. So
what do you?
I've just had a look
to?
now, Jonesy. Yeah, on 15 and a half. That's still good. Solid.
Mate, I went from 60. I was in the 60s at one point, and then all those Ukrainian profiles just started getting mopped
Some
up.
good-looking fake profiles, though, isn't there?
Yeah. So the chances of me getting a verified tick after what I did, no.
No.
Done.
No
Sure
chance.
not. But what I was thinking is, if you hacked into Elon Musk's Twitter, you should have got a little bit more creative, or Kanye West, than doing like a generic spam thing with Bitcoin. You should have just written like the way he would, like, hey y'all, or something, and add a bit more Kanye sort of vocab. If you really wanted to suck people in, because it could have gone nuts.
Like, there's these hackers out there who are crazy. Like, I've got a few years ago. The lady in our team who organises the salary payments and things, obviously have like quite a fair bit of email contact with her throughout the years over various different topics. So he'd been emailing her a number of times, and these hackers had been watching his emails. They'd hacked into his email account, and they'd been watching the wording and how he writes these emails to her and everything. And then eventually, once they had it sorted, they emailed her saying, hey, I've changed my bank account. Can you please start paying my salary to this bank account? And it was worded exactly how he would write an email and everything. Luckily, she was on the ball a bit, and she called him and was like, hey, did you just ask me to send your salaries to a different bank account? He's like, what? No. So they hacked into his emails, sussed it all out. And if it wasn't for her being onto it and being switched on, like, his salary payments could end up in bloody wherever,
I had the exact same thing happen to me with my financial guy, doing some stock stuff, and we had a friend of mine I went to school with, one of my good friends, went and worked under this guy as like left school, did his uni degree in finance, and then he went down and worked in Christchurch for him, and the guy that hacked my account, he was emailing my stockbroker, and he said, even in the email, he used like, hey mate, how's it working with Chris? The guy's name was Chris, like my school friend and stuff. Talked about my schoolmate, used my language, everything. And the only way it got pulled up was that this guy didn't have my European number. He managed to ring mum and dad. And then mum rang me and said, stockbroker just wanted to check that, or that you know that you change your account over the emails. And then they picked it up through that way. Otherwise, it would have been floodgates, everything gone.
Portfolio, yeah.
Jeez.
That's
Dodged the bullet there.
Hey, we tweeted, or I tweeted and Instagrammed and Facebooked the other day the itinerary for today's show. We haven't done any of that as per normal.
What was the itinerary? Send that to me.
Well, is there anything else you want to talk about?
No. Well, what I was going to say is that, should we take a Diet Coke piss stop? Rowe's going to be here probably in 10 or 15 minutes. If we carry for that long and then we talk to him, it's going to be an hour 45 long episode. So what do you reckon? We take a little breather and come back, or what?
Yeah, and can we say in this ad break, we'll just pick a random ad off YouTube just to keep we'll just play the ad. So enjoy a message from our sponsors.
If you're like me, you find it very hard to keep your dick dry. I left my dick unprotected and it was warped out of shape in no time. I could barely recognise my own dick. Imagine that. Then I discovered Schaefer's New Zealand style dick sealant. The best way to take care of your dick in 3 easy steps. First, wash your dick with soap and water. Then wait for your dick to dry. Once your dick is clean and dry, paint your dick with Schaefer's dick sealant. I used to be too embarrassed to invite people over to see my dick. But now, my dick's the talk of the town. I even have pictures of my dick. Check out that dick. I'm going to send this to my secretary. Barbara always loves to receive my dick pics. After all, summertime is all about spending time on your dick. I'll often have 20 to 30 people on my dick at once. That can really wear your dick out, causing dick splinters and discoloration. But with Schaefer's dick sealant, my dick stays a nice golden brown colour. Who wouldn't want a golden dick? I used to never let children anywhere near my dick. My dick was too dangerous for cods to play on. But it seems like every cod in the neighbourhood's been on my dick this summer, and they've all had a good time. My dick's over 70 years old, but it looks brand new. That's part of the reason all my neighbours are jealous of my dick. Isn't that right, Jim?
Yes, you've got a nice dick, okay?
His wife is always on my dick, begging me to know the secret of my perfect dick.
All right, here we go. We got Rowe. Here he is. Fucking hell. The first guest we get on here is on a massage table.
Yeah, dream. Well, old Bewley told me 4 o'clock, so I thought I'll get a quick rub and be good to go. But caught me off guard.
Well, it's 4:10, mate.
Different time zones. 3:10.
Oh, right. Ah, fuck.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, there we
you
go.
factor that one in, Bills, did you?
Yeah.
My
my bad. Or our bad.
Yeah. How's it
We've
going,
got
boys?
a lot of real low level admin on this show.
That's the
It
way.
might be you've taken a real step down. I mean, from coming from a quite a successful podcast, the What's On that you and G run.
What's
You've
occurring?
what's occurring?
Yeah,
See,
wasn't
this is
what's
kind of
on
what
that
I'm
thing on
talking about.
Eurosport? WhatsApp or
Nah,
whatever
mate,
it's called.
ours is the same. We're always making mistakes, and hey ho.
Now,
That's the way
this
to
is
go,
like
eh?
coming from the Premier League to Divi 4 and the shittest team that's going to get relegated.
We're facing relegation, eh? We thought
Yeah.
I'll
we'd
give you an
get
example,
a
Luke.
guest on.
I'll
Rightio.
give you an example of our low levelness. We opened this episode with about 20 minutes talking about Dan Jones's zit and if it's poppable or not. So
Was it
real
poppable?
high level stuff. Well, I said yes. Jones, he thinks it needs
No,
another day.
it's a deep pressurized one that you shouldn't touch unless you're guaranteed that you're going to get a result. Otherwise, it's going to scar up.
Yeah. Then it's there for a week or so.
Yeah.
So,
Hey.
Jules, you're going to open the batting and start
Yeah.
playing some shots or what?
Righto, we got Rowe on here today. I think everybody knows who Rowe is. He rides for Ineos. He's been there since 2012, Team Sky, and then now Team Ineos. He's been in the Tour de France team since 2015, and I think you've won every one since then, haven't you? Well, you won every bloody tour since 1903, I think, in your team.
Well, yeah, been a part of the winning team. 15, 16, 17, 5 years in a row. So picked up a Lantern Rouge somewhere along the way there as well. A few scars,
That's
one
right.
disqualification. So you name it, I've done it, mate.
Yeah. That DQ was so good. It was
Yeah.
so good.
Remember that, eh, Georgie?
Yo, I love it. We actually we wanted to get stuck into it. There's a bit of a furore in New Zealand at the moment about sideline punch ups, and we actually were looking to get into talking about We've gone deep into fighting. Actually, in rugby league, nothing in cycling, but you definitely had a good element in the last tour, and I loved it. I loved every bit of it. So I was sad to see you leave.
Mate, the best part about that, I watched the video before, and I saw when Rowe went back through the bunch, and then George gave him a bit of a wave. I was like, "What the fuck are you doing, George?"
I've just got small man syndrome, so I just chip in.
Oh,
I let Tony do the talk.
Yeah, as I went back, I copped a load of abuse. I think Lawrence the Plus called me a dickhead or something, and it was all deserved. I mean, it was one of them things, I think, myself and Tony would try and do similar jobs for the leaders, and we're kind of that naturally leads to me and him kind of boxing on throughout the the whole course of the race, and then that day it just boiled over, and I think we can both kind of hold our hands up and say we both kind of made a mistake. That being said, I think it was a bit over the top to send us home, but yeah, I mean, I don't mind laughing and joking about it, but looking back, it was a pretty shitty moment in the career. Just to, what it's like when you're working for the team. It's not you don't care, but I didn't care about myself. It's just the fact that you felt I let the boys down. So it was quite hard at the time, but now looking back, I think you just gotta accept it and crack on, right?
And let's be honest, the officials are soft because I mean, cycling, it's entertainment, right? It's a sport.
Yeah.
The fans love that shit. No one got badly injured. I mean, you look at ice hockey. As soon as they throw the gloves down, fans are up shaking, throwing their beers around. They love it. They've got to have. If you didn't get any sort of concussion, you didn't split anyone open, game on. You need characters in this sport. It's bullshit.
And truthfully, it happens, man. It happens. And you're just, there's a TV camera there,
I do have to ask, you see it when riders get injured. Did you still go to the last party in Paris after that tour win?
Yeah.
Man.
So I went, I flew home the next day. kind of drowned my sorrows back in Cardiff, had a night or two there, and then I wasn't going to go to Paris. I had no plans of going, and the team called me and they said, "Listen, your flight's booked. You got no choice. Come over. You're a big part of it. We want you to be there." So that was quite nice, So flew over Saturday morning, big night Saturday night, watched the race Sunday, and then there with the boys to celebrate in Paris. So didn't miss miss out on any of that shenanigans.
Yeah, and look, like you said, like about you being a big part of that team. I guess it's a good segue into Froome. You've been a big part of a lot of Froome's successes, and I mean, obviously, as everybody knows now in the media, that Froome's leaving the team next year after 10 or 11 years there, going to Israel Cycling Academy. And look, I mean, I guess from my point, I understand it for a number of reasons, but I guess primarily it's for guaranteed leadership in the Tour de France next year. And in our team, we've also had periods of like guys like Simon Gerrans, Caleb Ewan, Michael Matthews, those guys leaving the team. And when a leader is a team, it's always a bit of a shame. And I guess for you, Rowe, like having been part of so many successes for him, I mean, sure, you've got G and Bernal now, so it's sort of business as usual for you guys next year, even without Froome, I suppose. But it must be a bit of a shame for you to lose someone you've been a big part of his successes.
Yeah, exactly, mate. I think, since he's been with the team since the start, I've been alongside him for my whole pro career. So since day one, I've been racing alongside him, and even prior to that, we both lived in Croatia when I was an amateur and he was a pro. So yeah, 10, 12 years I've been alongside him. And I think, but like you say, 100% understand the reason, he's changing teams. Obviously, like you nailed it. There's G, there's Egan, and then you got Carapaz and guys like Pavel Sivakov. That you just got these young up and comers, and he's forever. Well, they're all forever going to have to fight for leadership and to be top dog, and he can step over there, and he's instantly top dog, and there's no pressure to prove that in training or racing, and then come to the Tour de France, he'll be fully supported. So, I completely understand the move from his point of view. But that being said, obviously, I've been there for 3 of his Tour wins. I've ridden a couple of Welters with him. So, yeah, sad to see him go. And also he's, I think not a lot of people really know him that well. You see an interview with him and he's just, well, to be honest, quite boring. And after a stage, he'll say, standard stuff. Thanks, my team were good. It was a hard race and I'm happy to win. But actually, he's such a fucking character. He's, and when he lets his guard down and, just in a relaxed environment, he's brilliant. So, yeah, definitely a shame to see him go. But, I think what the reasoning is the right reason to go.
Yeah, and it's like that with, I mean, you could also argue it for anyone who's basically part of the furniture in a team. Like our team's a good example of, we've got guys in this team who have been here since the start, and we've had guys who have been here since the start and who have left. And regardless of whether they're winners or not, it's always a shame to see someone who's sort of upheld the culture of the team, been a leader on and off the bike. It's always a shame when guys like that leave. But I guess if you're with them for a long time, you develop those friendships anyway, and they carry on like through the years, regardless of what team you're in. Even though you're going to be butting elbows with them, definitely not to the same level as you were with Tony. But it's quite interesting because like you look at the success your team's had in the Tour de France. Like you've won with 4 different riders. You've won 7 Tour de France's, no? Something like that. Yeah. But like at the end of the day, it's like the team that you guys have built, the way you guys perform on the bike. Sure, G wins or Egan wins or Froome wins or Brad wins, but like it's the way that you guys effectively dominate as a team. You have done over the last few years, and I find it quite interesting. Like Froome's obviously gone to have that leadership, but he's going to have to build a whole team around him now that can match effectively what you guys do and probably what George's team does as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think without sounding like a big ad, I think the team has been dominant in that one race, and only in that one race, really. across the rest of the races is certainly not the case. And I think they put so much emphasis and so much of their resources into that one particular race. And now, I think you see with Lotto Jumbo and George and the rest of the boys, they're doing a similar thing in it. That last year certainly it wasn't a domination, far from it. And you could even argue that the Lotto Jumbo or FDJ on their day in the mountains were stronger. So it's only exciting for the fans, and I think they're the ones who essentially win. But like you say with Froome, new team, he's going to have to, like in this team, he had his mechanic, he had his carer, he had his guys around him who went to certain races, and he had this entourage, and it's going to be starting from zero, and he's going to have to build that up. But it's a whole new culture as well, isn't it? Every team's different, and there is that, where we got a British culture, you got the Aussie, Kiwi culture, whatever, and he's going to go into a completely different culture where everything's different. Israel Cycling Academy, it's going to be a lot of change, but like you say, he always had that crew around him here, and he's going to have to build that back up from scratch.
How do you
Rowe,
find it?
you're right, George.
Okay,
Yeah,
I was just going to say, how do you find it squaring off? How do you find it squaring off against your old teammates? Actually, like how do you find that? Because I know, like, you obviously boys with them, and then you go into races, like, because I have it sometimes when I square up with like the Mitchelton boys down under. When I go elbow to elbow with Derbs and Daryl, good mates, we go out and barbecues together on the weekends, and then we go to down under and we're hooking each other into the barriers.
It's a strange one, isn't it? Because for me, I've always been able to separate off bike to on bike, and I think that's where it takes a certain mentality to have your best mate. And then look, Pete Kenner was another example, similar to what you were just explaining. And you get these mates, you get these close relationships, and then suddenly they're in a different team. And for me, I just take it, and I've got the ability to kind of switch from race mode to off race mode, and I might, have a ding dong in the race, and then after, I hope that person there's no problem with. But obviously, there's a line. If day in, day out, you're being a dick for no reason, then you're not going to be a well-liked guy, and that's fair enough. But I think, like me and Bewley, how many ding dongs have we had over the years?
Yeah. I love it, eh? I reckon it's better squaring off with your mates, because, like, if you square off with your mates, you at the end of the day, like, he's a fucking good bastard, and you just have a laugh about it afterwards over there. But if you square off with some guy you don't know, you're like, oh, fuck that prick. Like, there's no coming back from it.
I got 2 points on this. One is the sorry, I keep going back to it, but the you and Tony square off. What I loved about that, right, was that whatever happened in the race, no one gave a shit. No one was like taking that personally. You boys rode together to the finish line, laughing and talking shit, and then no one got to the dinner table and went, "How's fucking Luke Rowe?" and ragging on you. They were like, "Man, that escalated." And then we were like, "Oh shit, they're out of the race." And then we were just gutted for Tony. But you boys were together, whatever. But I once had it in a race, one of my first pro races, where I didn't really. Okay, I'll admit I was an absolute pest, and it's probably to a point still am, and I'm working on it. But
long way to go.
It boiled over. We didn't leave it on the bike, and it was in Tour Down Under one year, and I'd had a bit of beef with the guy all week, and the last night we went out and launched. And we came. I left with a broken nose. I was on a flight home.
I know that
with a broken nose.
Oh yeah,
I was there.
Were you there?
Here we go.
Yeah, I was there.
Let's get the real story.
Yeah,
I just remember getting. Oh,
headbutt.
Man, I remember headbutted straight in the nose, and I remember that morning. So I got back to the hotel. This is probably going to end up on Cycling News, so listen, don't be dicks. But
good, we need the hits so we can get real sponsors.
So what happened that night was I ended up with a broken nose, and it was whatever. It all boiled over. But then I got taken back to the hotel. Jack Bauer and some of the boys put me in this cab, and I got back to the hotel, and I was rooming with one of my good mates, Jesse Sargent, and he had my suitcase packed and took me to the airport and all the stuff. And I woke up on the flight because I was trying to fly back to New Zealand, but you couldn't fly from Adelaide, so I think we had to stop in Sydney, and I remember like waking up, landing in Sydney, and looking around, and going like, "Fuck, what is this?" And I walked off. I walked out to the plane, and Jesse was just standing at the end of the tunnel, just shaking his head. I just got dried blood and black eyes, going, "Fuck."
Yeah, but George, I mean,
first year as a pro.
Well, not like without mentioning names, who this other person was. You didn't pick a very good target, did you? Of all the people, you
that's
picked,
classic small man syndrome, though, isn't it? You go for the
picked a
big guy, the
pretty big unit to fuck with.
You were always going to win. I wasn't there, but I've
I
heard
would
the
not
story.
fight that guy.
But it was prison. It was prison tactics, you know. It was like new kid on the block, go for the big guy. Just really trying to set yourself.
Yeah, and you got your nose broken. Good work.
I don't know if I got a punch on him. So, Bills, you've had a few sporting run-ins. What was this thing about water polo? I remember you told me a water polo story once that you got stuck into.
Mate, it was the best punch on I ever had and the reason for that was because my old man was there in the stands, and I was playing water polo. I was like 15 or 16, and there's always a bit of shit going on under the water, you know. And some dude, he just grabbed me by the nuts, and I was like, "Oh, fuck!" Like, I mean, you can do a couple of bits and pieces under the water, but that's like you don't go for the crown jewels, you know. So I remember
that's common practice in water polo. They all do that.
I was young and I didn't like it. And
standard defense.
And I remember we were like in the other end of the pool, so there was no one around us. And I just came out of the water as high as I could, and I just fucking went smack, laid one straight on his kisser. And then all I heard when I came back up out of the water was this guy in the stands just going. And I looked up, and my old man was just like, "Yeah." I got suspended for 4 games for that. Mum wasn't happy.
That's brilliant.
I reckon New Zealand sporting sidelines are potentially the worst place in New Zealand. Like, all I have memories of playing footy as a kid, and I wonder if this is the same for you, Luke, in Wales. If they, you played footy as well, I think, right? Rugby growing up.
Played a bit of rugby, yeah.
Yeah. So in New Zealand, all I have memories of is like under 13s, and just old men on the sideline screaming at their son, kick him in the head, and just just screaming at their kids, and then the parents getting stuck into it. And I think if I took New Zealand is by far and away great people, friendly, open, whatever. But the sporting sidelines in New Zealand, especially at rugby, from pushy parents. There was a big story about a week ago where where it erupted between two rugby teams, and the whole team started fighting. But not only the team started fighting, they then said there was a 50-man brawl as the spectators from each side just started going at each other. And I think it's just the most angry place. And I wonder if that's a New Zealand thing, or is that pretty common in Wales?
Mate, there's a documentary about this topic, and it's all about parents that are too full on with their kids playing sport. And one of the funniest scenes is this dad who spent all this money on his daughter to become this gun golfer. She's only like 6 or 7, and he's like the caddy for this massive tournament. And she gets on the first tee, and the dad's just like eyeing her off, and she shanks it into the woods. And he just goes on this rant like, "Fucking goddamn it! Oh, what a shit shot!" And her game was pretty much ruined after that. She was missing 3-foot putts. But there's a whole doco on that whole thing.
I reckon, speaking of golf, we let Rowe go because he's getting his massage.
Yeah.
But we did touch on some golf earlier on, Rowe. We were talking about Tiger Woods as Legend of Berlin. So quickly, before you go, with no research, no information at all, off the top of your head, is he a legend or a bellend?
Oh, I wish I knew more about him. I know he's done some dodgy shit, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He's done some dodgy shit.
Yeah.
But the first time someone's ever said, "I wish I knew more about Tiger Woods." He's just flown under the radar, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's not very famous, is he?
To help you out, all right, good man. We all voted legend, so it's good to have some difference in there. Good on
Hey,
you.
one last one before you go, Rowie.
Yeah, go on.
Is everyone was raving about the Last Dance documentary. It was all about obviously the Bulls dynasty or whatever. Let's be honest, in cycling, you guys are probably the closest thing we've got to a dynasty at the Tour de France. Does it get harder to win the Tour year after year as the pressure mounts, where it's expected, where people are going, you're going to the Tour this year, it's expected that you guys are going to win it? Because in the Last Dance doco, you saw it mentally cook guys like Jordan when he's trying to win his 6th. he was almost saying to the camera, going, "I'm fucking over this." Does it the pressure cooker build, or how do you handle it?
I think 100% year on year it gets harder. Okay, other teams, other riders, I think that have closed the gap, but more so, if someone from the team wins it, it's like, okay, they won it, they should. But it's almost like we can only fail in a way.
Yeah.
If you
That's
win it,
hard, eh?
if you win it, it's expected. If you don't win it, you failed. If you come second, you failed. Which, so year on year, I think it's getting harder. But I think the whole sport in general is just getting more and more professional, and people are getting more and more boring. And I think,
mate, Bewley's starting to weigh his food now. It's getting.
You're
to
not
that
one of them,
level.
are you?
He is weighing his food, aren't you, Bills?
I never have been Rowe, but I've
you've gone to the
converted
dark
to,
side.
Yeah, mate.
It's
I don't sleep at night.
What's wrong with you?
I weigh my food, but I don't sleep at night anymore.
Oh, mate.
And he hates himself, so in balance, he's the same.
He's tanking on training rides.
You just have to be look at your job. You just have to be a big, strong bastard, don't you?
Yeah. Good point. I'm gonna go grab a burger and a couple of beers.
Good man. Good man.
Hey, cheers, Rowe. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Right,
even though you're in the middle of a mess.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate the commitment. You're a bloody good man. See you on the start line somewhere.
Cheers, mate. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
See you in a couple of weeks. Bye, boys. Bye,
See you, mate.
Cheers, mate.
See ya.
See you later.
What a legend. Hey, more reliable than Daryl Impey. That's saying something.
Good on, Rowe, eh?
Yeah.
Bloody good. Bloody good of him to... we busted up the time zone, so that's not the first time this has happened. He's an hour behind in Tenerife. I didn't know that. Anyway, he committed on the massage table, so thanks to him for that. Bloody legend. And I'm done. I'm ready to
I'm done. This has been a mammoth afternoon on the phone.
Mate, it's 12:30 a.m. I've had numerous text messages from the missus going, "You're way too loud." She's upstairs trying to keep the kids asleep. So anyway,
all right, let's call it then.
All right, I'm going to go pop this zit, boys.
Yeah, subscribe and all that stuff, everybody. And also we give Rowe's podcast a quick shout out. What's occurring with him and Geraint Thomas? Give that a listen. Give that a listen, but only after you've listened to all of ours, told every single person you know about our one, and subscribe, and then go to theirs.
And if you're a company and you want us to give you a legitimate shout out, send Bewley a private message on Twitter. He handles all the show financials.
All right, get out of my apartment too, mate.
Yeah, all right, boys. Good it.
See you later.
Cheers. See you later.